David, thanks for joining me at Investing Insights.
George, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, let us know, please. You were 63 years old, already married for 30 years, and suddenly your paycheck was gone. And then you had to really rethink your life, your setup, your investment strategy, and all of that. Please let us know, how was the first year? Because usually I know the first year of starting something new is the most difficult. And how has it then evolved after the first year?
Well, the first year, from the day it started, I was, like I said, you said I was 63. I had 18 years with the same company and got fired. And I did the math and I realized that if we drained all of our savings and all of our investments, we'd be broke by 65. And at this point, I'm thinking, who's going to hire me at my age? But the hardest thing, George, was driving home, just thinking, how am I going to tell my wife Mary? We'd been married for 30 years and she just didn't deserve the mess I just threw us into. But anyways, I after 2 months of dead end job searching, I decided I was going to take a huge risk, and I opened up an independent sales agency on straight commission, no salary, no safety net. The first months were brutal. It was constantly rejections, cold calls, rookie mistakes. But George, I kept getting beat up with rejection. But I really do think that constant rejection was the kind of the resistance I needed to build the mental muscles I needed to work through it. By the 10th month, I was suddenly making more money than my good paying corporate salary, and for a very brief moment, I thought we made it. But then reality set in. I says, wait a minute, I haven't invested anything. I haven't saved anything. What am I going to do? So I knew my runway was short. I had not a lot of time. And so I dug in, read 21 books, listened to 13 financial podcasts consistently, blogs, newsletters, articles, and developed what I called a one-page wealth compass. I got it all on one piece of paper. It's a simple set it and forget it approach. 6 years later, at age 69, I achieved what I thought was impossible. I went from terrified of being broke to a seven-figure portfolio and a real financial freedom. And George, I now know that it is never too late to rewrite your story, because if I can pull it off starting as late as 63, anybody can, if with the right direction, of course.
Yeah. Oh, that's really inspiring, especially while pulling of a new business, you have to study all those books. So like getting your business strategy up while also your investment strategy,
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
both in the same time is really difficult. I
yeah,
mean, sometimes I feel like I wish I would have less business stuff so I could study more the stocks. And
yeah,
then in the same
yeah,
time, you're like, well, it's not just the stocks market. I need cash flow. So I need to,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, make money.
exactly. Yeah.
So that's
So that's
quite difficult. And as mentioned, I know the first year is always the most difficult one
it
in a new
was
business.
it was extremely. So,
So let me know. I mean, you have nearly 40 years ahead of me in your life. I'm 34, and how how did your investment strategy evolve over your lifetime? I mean, I grew up with, oh, there are ETFs and I can invest through my phone and it's so easy and so democratized. But I mean, in your age, when you were young, it was different. You had to go to a broker, and you couldn't buy anytime. You maybe had to call. So please let me know how your investment strategy evolved over the past centuries as well, and why
well,
is it
that
now just a one pager?
Well, the first problem was, George, it wasn't a strategy. It was like, whatever. I mean, I'd see a new idea and I go, oh, that sounds good. Or the market would crash. I go, I better get out. And then the market would go up. I better get in. And I had no strategy for 40 years. And I've heard it said that, if you don't have a plan, you're part of somebody else's. And I was definitely part of somebody else's plan for 40 years. And look where that got me. When I was 63, I basically had nothing. I mean, next to nothing, I should say. And that's why having a plan is so important. And that's why when I decided, when I was starting to make money now again at 63, and then I says, okay, I got to get something. And that's where I got it on one piece of paper, because it says I can't afford to get. I'm the kind of person that I get it appeals me, shiny objects. Oh, this is new, or did you hear that new tip, that stock tip, and all that? And I used to love that kind of stuff, and I used to get involved in it, and it just. I mean, at the end of the year, I'd have less money than I had, at the beginning of the year. So that was kind of my strategy. And so when I finally got something, I said, it has to be simple. That's the whole key. It has to be simple. I'm only invested in two funds. That's all I have, because I have a set it and forget it approach. One of the funds is a total U.S. market. I own every publicly traded stock in the United States, and the other is a total outside the U.S. market, every publicly traded. So there isn't a single publicly traded investment on the planet that I don't own. I only own tiny slices of it. I mean, but it's simple that way. It's so diversified, and I can just literally forget about it. So when the market goes up or down or whatever, I don't even worry about it. And when I get a new tip, or I don't worry about it. I just stay focused on my plan. And I tell you, if I was 30 something starting over again, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd be so much better. I mean, I'm doing wonderful right now, fortunately. But I mean, if I could have started at 30 something with that plan, it would have been tremendously better.
Yeah, I'm realizing this more and more. Like, I mean, touching your portfolio, selling, buying new things, and constantly reshuffling it, it really takes a lot of expertise. And as you've mentioned, you're maybe part of someone else's plan. So there are big players out there,
Yeah.
market players, but people influencing us for all the news and media. And so we follow some sentiment, and then we just take a lot of decisions that a lot of them are maybe not good for our portfolio. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Eh,
but please go ahead.
every time you make that change too, there's two things that are working against you, George. We all both know: taxes, because you're selling now, and so there is some kind of tax consequences, and fees, and there's fees involved every time you make a move. But if you're not making moves, you're just adding, there's no taxes and there's no fees, and that gives you compounding that is wonderful, wonderful. It's just phenomenal. Anyways.
Hmm. um yeah. So I don't know, there's this movement. It's called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. um I think you propose of a different movement. How is it called?
Yeah, mine's called FIGNA, Financial Independence, Graduate to the Next Adventure. I personally, George, never want to retire. I'm having too much fun. I love my agency. My son has joined me now. I'm having a great time and it's growing. I love sharing my one-page wealth compass with people, helping them on their path to financial freedom. And I love my volunteer work with charities every month. I look forward to that. I mean, that's the last thing I want to do is retire. I'm not saying retirement's bad. It's fine for people who want to do it. And maybe graduating to the next adventure for some people is retiring, but that's just not my thing. We live on a beautiful golf course in the back, and I look out there and I look at this golfers and I go, I hope you're having a great time, because I could never do that. I just have to be doing something that's more fun and productive to me than golfing. But that's just me.
Yeah. Well, that's inspiring. I mean, the idea, I think, between FIRE is in that sense that we feel like at least we don't need to grind, or it doesn't feel like I need to, I live from paycheck to paycheck. I still need to put in all of those hours in that company just like to stay afloat. And I think that's the good idea between FIRE, and then how people define retirement is a different pair of shoes. Some people
Yeah,
really mean they want to like go golfing, play golf
yeah,
every day, and others
yeah.
want to no, just work on the book or do volunteering and whatever you just mentioned. Actually, like being still productive and useful to society and to others and to oneself, but not like lying on the sofa.
I've met a lot of people my age, and when they would first retire, it's great for 6 months. There's like a 6 months honeymoon, maybe a year if you really stretch it. But after that, they're just like, well, you only get paid so many games of golf. You're going to so much pickleball, and you only take so many vacations. Then you got to do something. And so many of them end up getting back. That's why FIRE. I'm not against the FIRE movement, but to me, it almost sounds depressing. Financial amounts retire early. I'd rather graduate to a new adventure, whatever that adventure is. And I think a lot of FIRE people do that. They just don't say that, but they actually that's what they do a lot.
Hmm. Yeah. And how would you give an advice to someone like me staying young to motivate me to really invest boringly? I mean, the stock market looks so exciting and there are all those opportunities, and maybe I choose the right stock that is 100 bagger and makes turns 150%.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
what advice do you give that I stick to the boring path?
okay. Well, let me tell you my boring path, and then you can just decide for yourself. I doubled my portfolio 3 times in just a 6-year period. But let me tell you something. I wasn't chasing crypto. I wasn't day trading, or I wasn't trying to time the market. I was doing something so boring it would put you to sleep. And basically, I found an investment approach that was so simple. And the crazy part of it was, George, is when the market was down, I was thrilled. When other people were panicking and selling, I was buying more shares at discount prices. My only regret, George, is that the market wasn't down more during that 6-year period, because it would be even better for me. But what really surprised me, it wasn't so much the returns, it was the math. And there's a thing called the rule of 72, which I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with. And it says, say you're getting a 10% return on your investment, then the rule of 72 says every 7.2 years, you will double your investment. Well, once I started my one-page wealth compass, My first double occurred in just 30 months. My second one occurred in just 13 months. And my third one occurred in 29 months. That's an average of 24 months, which is way less than half than the expected 86-month time. But the secret was three things. Okay. One, I was saving a good, aggressive portion of my income every month. Secondly, I was putting in the right kind of low cost, highly diversified index funds, and not a lot of them, just two. Keep it simple. And third, I was using market volatility to work for me instead of against me. So many people buy high and sell low, which is the opposite of what you want to do because they're letting their emotions run them. Okay, when I got the compass, my emotions were put on the back burner and I was just following it, and I was able to break that cycle. And basically, so many people do the opposite when they're in my book. They're panicked, they don't have much time left, so they either get in high risk stuff, which ends tragically, or they get so conservative, George, they can't even keep up with inflation and they're going backwards every single year. I was able to build my portfolio twice as fast with half the risk. That's really important, that second piece, okay? Compared to how so many people are doing it by that simple, boring approach.
Hmm. So how can I imagine how many percent of your income, of your monthly income, did you put into your two index funds?
I was pretty aggressive. Now, I'm not saying most people can do this. Maybe they can. I was putting probably over 35% of my money, between 35 and 40% of my money every month was going into it. Now, I was fortunately, my firm got successful after 10 months, and so I was able to generate above average income. But you don't have to have an above average income, and you don't have to do 30 to 40%, although that's pretty aggressive. Okay. But I need to remember my runway was very short, and I had to catch up pretty quickly. So that's
Yeah,
good.
exactly. If somebody has 40 years more to go, they
Yeah.
don't need to be like
15%
be
is fine. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Which of course you cannot control, like you can never
Yeah.
control, but sometimes we
Yeah.
feel we can control it by choosing the right stocks, but you would just let the market do its magic.
Yeah.
Um, so how did you buy then? Was it like a daily dollar cost averaging monthly? Did you say in the beginning of the month I will sit down, or did you just take what was left at the end of the month?
No.
How's your
What I did, I did the thing where you call pay yourself first, okay? And I took my, let's just say 35%, it varied, but let's just say it was there. I took my, when I got paid, and I got paid, I paid myself twice a month, okay, for my company, okay? So whenever I got my paycheck, I just took 35% right off the top before I did anything else. And I just clicked the button and transferred it into my investment account, okay? And a certain percent went to the international, a certain percent went to domestic. And that was it. I mean, we're talking a couple minutes a month, okay, to do that, to transfer. It's clicking a button on your computer and transferring it. It's real simple. You can do it on your phone too if you want now. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't take any time. And when if you do it first before you do before any of your bills or before anything else, it's gone. So now you work with what you have left. And I was able to work with what I have left without a problem.
Mhm. Nice. And you put all of that into your one page wealth compass?
Exactly. Automation is really nice, George, because
Mhm.
hopefully your listeners are probably they're working on their careers, they're young, they're trying to, you don't need to be investing hours and analyzing the market and looking at reports and watching things. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just do it in like a couple minutes a month, and just forget it and then focus on your career and focus on having a good time when you're off your career instead of boring hours studying investments and markets and stocks and everything like that. So I want to automate the whole thing. So it's a click of a couple buttons and it's done.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, the capital markets are actually the ones that can bring us like amazing returns already with little work comparing to an agency. You know, an agency, like you have to build up a
Yeah.
team, you have to do sales, you have to do marketing, so you have to put
Yeah.
in a lot of hours. So
Yeah.
if you follow the right strategy, actually making money passively through compounding is actually already the most effective thing we
It
can
is.
do.
It's much more effective. And all the research I've done, it's been now over 6 years because I'm 72 now. I'm no longer 63. Everything I've read from the credible experts who don't have a hidden agenda or a conflict of interest, I'm talking about real objective people, you are the smartest thing you can do is buy the whole entire market. Don't, as some people say, don't try to find that needle in the haystack. Just buy the whole haystack, and you'll be just fine. And I know that's true because it's worked for me wonderfully.
So when you've read that many books and most likely seem like I go through this journey now by doing a lot of podcasts, I learn a lot about your relationship with money as well. did you realize a change as well how you approach money? I mean, you came in the situation that you needed to take action and responsibility because before you had a your fixed salary and you could live from your payslip. So maybe going in and out of the market was something nice to have, but you were sure you had your income. But now you had this new situation. Did you observe in yourself as a change on how you approach money? Did it change your approach to being like less fearful or less greedy or whatever?
Yeah, it did. I tell you, there's a difference between making money and building wealth. Okay, and I was really good for 40 years at making money. Most of those years, there's always a few down years, but most of those years I made well above the average income, which is very embarrassing to say when then I get 63 and I got nothing to show for it. Okay, but making money isn't the secret here. It's the building wealth part. Once I figured out the building wealth part, my whole attitude towards money changed. I was used to be like, oh, I got to make more money. I got to earn this money. I got to, pay my bills and all that kind of thing and pay for vacations and all this kind of thing. And I was doing it, but I just felt like I was always kind of trying to catch up on it, almost like on a treadmill or something like that. Whereas when I learned how to build wealth, the tables suddenly turned. I felt calmer. I felt more relaxed. I felt like money was now working for me instead of me just working for money. And now my money is actually working for me. I have years, matter of fact, most of them recently now, where the increase in my portfolio is greater than my gross annual income, and I'm making a pretty decent gross annual income. And when that starts happening, it stops feeling a lot like catching up and starts feeling more like building wealth. And all of a sudden, your attitude towards money is very different and much less stressful too, much less stressful.
Yeah. Then it feels like you're really retired because the
Yeah,
money is working for you. And if you work on your agency and still make some money, it's just this
yeah.
extra bonus that you do for yourself, right?
Exactly, exactly. And now that money's working for me, I don't feel like I have to. I don't. Mentally, I guess maybe I'm retired, as I don't feel like I have to make money, but I still do just because I'm having fun doing it. But that's a whole different attitude going to work every day.
And what would you recommend younger people regarding their spending habits? Is there something that you would change nowadays? Say like I should have maybe not just invested more, but maybe spend less, save better, um, taking a different approach towards money.
Yeah, I think when you said that, it just reminded me of something that I'd like to share with your listeners too. It's about pro athletes and the vast amount of money they're making and their situation, because I think it really makes an important point. The NBA, the average NBA player in the United States, they make over $10 million per year. Now, George, I didn't say $10 million in their career. I'm talking about a per year thing, okay? But here's the thing: after 5 years of retirement, 60% of those NBA players are broke, according to the Netflix documentary Broke. But the NFL is even worse. The NFL, after only 2 years of retirement, 78% of them are either bankrupt or in serious financial situation, according to Sports Illustrated. Now, compare that to Dale Schroeder, who is a basketball loving carpenter who earned a modest income his entire life, but he chose to live below his means and invest the difference. He ended up with a $3 million portfolio. George, that's more money than the average NBA and NFL players, and they're making their $10 million. And this guy was making probably a below average income for the average of the country. And that's what I'm saying. Making money is very different than building wealth. Those NBA players, they knew how to make money. They did not know how to build wealth. Okay. Dale Schroeder, he wasn't that great at making money, but he knew how to build wealth. If I only had to pick one of them, and this might shock some people, I'd pick the building wealth, not the making money. I'd rather make an average income and have millions than make all these millions and have nothing at the end. And that's how I look at it.
Nice one. Yeah, it's also the people we surround ourselves with. Of course, if everybody in the whole team makes millions and everybody has this nice house and those nice cars, it would be really weird if you don't have that.
Exactly.
Uh, and then, of course, as a sports star, a lot of things are being taken care of. And the moment you retire, then you have to pay for all of those things that maybe the team was taking care of. So,
Don't you think,
uh,
George, if you're making $10 million a year, you could somehow struggle to live on $5 million?
I mean, I mean, yeah, there's a certain level of like, it's fine to spend and maybe use less, but at least do what you did, put 30%
Yeah, that's right.
each month
Yeah,
into index funds and let
yeah,
it
yeah,
work, and just don't touch it. Treat
yeah,
it like as your piggy bank, as your savings account,
yeah,
but just with the compounding effect. It's not just a savings account with a
yeah,
2% return. It's actually compounding. And I think that's where it should start with.
yeah.
I mean, you and I, we are not financial advisors, but common sense and experience and other life stories and books each tell us this. Like, build the foundation, put money in those index funds, and then if somebody feels ready to, I don't know, do something more risky or really want to do some stock picking, they can still do it with their, I call it gambling money or fun
Yeah,
money or whatever
I
money.
agree. I agree.
Um, but that security piece should be there. And actually, your the pre-conversation we had actually reminded me about that as well. That I started like also stock picking and here and there, and I got a bit too much in the casino mentality as well. So
Yeah.
it helped me to reconsider as well, like to always think about this first as a priority, and then second into
And I
stock
agree with
picking.
you, George. If somebody like loves stock picking and all that kind of thing, it's kind of play or entertainment for them, like a video game is or whatever. That's fine. Take maybe like 5% of your net worth or your portfolio, or maybe 2 or 3% of your portfolio. And if you want to play with that money and you can afford to lose it, that's fine. But not like all your portfolio or half your portfolio. I just can't do that.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you've read all those books. There's so many strategies on how to build the right portfolio for being resilient. Um, for you, it was very simple. Just buy the whole world.
Yeah, exactly. So for me to go broke, George, the entire planet would have to collapse, the financial
Yeah,
markets. And if that happens, we'd have much bigger problems than money. Money probably wouldn't be worth anything. You better
yeah,
have food
exactly.
storage or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And perfect. So, did you inspire your family as well to with your one-page wealth compass?
Well, my wife's not really into financing. I mean, she's a wonderful woman and I love her and she's a great cook. I'd be starving if she wasn't such a good cook. But my son, yeah, definitely he's learned a lot from it and he's gained a lot from it for sure. Yeah.
And then you wrote a book, also like called the One-Page Wealth Compass. So, what's in there beyond this one page that we should all look at?
Well, what's nice about the one-page compass, and that is, there's two sides to it. One is the 9 trail markers, and this is like the step-by-step approach to getting to your wealth goal. But the other half of it is the principles. So when you see that new idea that's not on the steps, and you're tempted to do it, you look at the principles, the 5 simple principles, and just to kind of rein yourself in to make sure you don't get off track. Okay, so the book, what I did with the book is by the way, I give the compass away free. Your listeners can have it. They just go on my website, onepagewealthcompass.com. They could download it for free. So there's no fee. But on some of the steps, like say getting out of debt, you might say, well, I could use a little more details on the getting out of debt thing. Well, then I have right on it what chapter they can go to in the book to get the details on more information if they want more. If they don't want more, that's fine. So and every step has that. So if the one-page compass keeps you focused, it's like the 30,000-foot view keeps you focused the right direction, and then the book is like the little maps telling you where to turn right or left. Depending on where you are on the map, I'm on your journey. And so they kind of work hand in hand really well. But I suggest just starting out with the compass. It's free and look at it and see if it makes sense to you. And if it does, and if you want more details, go ahead and get the book. It's not expensive at all. But I'm not here to sell anything on my site. It's all free stuff. I've made my money. I'm comfortable with what I got. And if they want the book, great. But if they don't, they can just get the compass and go with that and whatever they're comfortable with. Yeah.
And what are the 5 steps?
Oh, well, actually, there's 9 steps, okay, and then there's
9.
and there's 5 principles, okay. So I wasn't sure which we were referring to. Yeah.
Okay,
So
good.
I'll give it on the 9 steps. First, let me just tell you what a couple of the steps. I guess I didn't get them for
Yeah.
free, but let me just. Most of the financial books I read, George, the one thing they skipped, and this is like a critical thing, and they just skip it, and it is how to get income. I mean, how to get the income you really want. I'm sure a lot of people out there would say, I'm making good money, or maybe I'm not, but I'd like to make more. Well, the books always assume you're already making good money and you've got that piece handled. Well, that's not true for the average person on
Hmm.
the planet. They really need to. And so what I did in the first 2 chapters, I just showed them one thing I'm pretty good at is generating a good income. For 40 years, I did that. And the tips and the things I did to build my income, the when I got a setback, how I got out of it and how I built it further, that kind of thing. And those things are critical. And you can't assume that everyone's got making all the money they ever could want. I mean, that's not the case with a lot of people. And so that's one of the things that the steps are. Another thing, just if you ask about the steps, is the order of the steps is really important. And let me just give you an example of why so many gurus out there, financial gurus all over the planet, they say get a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, which I agree with. That's a very smart and intelligent thing. Once you get out of debt, get that 3 to 6 months emergency fund. Then they say once you have that fully funded emergency fund and you're out of debt, then start building your wealth, putting 15% away or 10% or 20%, whatever the percentage is they say, okay? When I built my compass, I questioned everything. I don't care how, dogmatic or traditional those rules were, and I did the math on everything. And this is what I found, and this is why my compass is a little different. I found that if you do it the way the experts are telling you, get the emergency fund first, then do the investments, you're out of that market for about a year, because it's going to take most people about a year to get 3 to 6 months of expenses into a fund like that. And by being out of the market for a year, that money that you would have had at age 25, if you're doing it at that age, and age 65, that putting that money out of the air, that's going to cost you. And I did the math. It's just shy of $500,000. What my compass says, so you don't lose that $500,000, is do them at the same time. You just got out of debt. You've got some cash flow now. Build your emergency fund and start your investing at the same exact time. Now you're not sitting out of the market for a year when you're young and that thing could compound for 40 years. You're in the market. I know it sounds like a little thing, but $500,000 when you retire isn't a little thing. An extra. This is extra. This is on top of whatever you have. And so it's things like that that I question that gurus did all the time that makes a big difference. And you can really accelerate your financial growth without risk. I mean, it doesn't take any more. There wasn't any more risky to do it that way. It's a matter of fact, I think it's better.
I mean, that's a great approach, because if you think about, I need this 3 to 6 months cushion, but it takes me forever to reach it, then you
Yeah.
never go into the investment phase.
Yeah. Yeah.
One question I have regarding, I mean, you mentioned you're good in getting the right salary, like maybe asking for a pay raise and all of that. What's easier, like striving for a higher salary and asking your employer to get a raise, or maybe switching your employer, like you're leaving for another company, or actually reducing my spending?
Mm. I think they're both critical, and it depends on the person. If you're making well below your expected income or desired income, I would say that's your priority. But if you're spending more money than you're making, okay, you need to get that under control. You're going to end up like the NBA players, that kind of thing. And so I guess it's an individual thing on the person where they're at. Some people are really good at making money, and they really don't need to focus much more on that, but they really need to focus on getting their expenses in line. Other people, it's the other way around. If you have consumer debt, George, if anybody of your listeners have consumer debt, that is mathematical evidence you are living beyond your means. That is mathematical evidence that that's a priority for you. You need to get your expenses in line. And that's, I think, a good objective way to look at it too.
So pay off your credit card debt, your
Yeah.
student loan debt, the car loan,
Yeah.
whatever, all of those things, right?
Yeah. Everything but mortgage. Mortgage is different because that's appreciating if you have a home.
Yeah. Did you ever play the board game Cash Flow?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you can have a look. It's a board game. It's a bit like Monopoly.
Okay.
It's called Cash Flow, and yeah, everybody picks a job, and then one starts as a lawyer and has, like, I don't know, $5,000 salary, and the other one is a plumber and has a $2,500. So everybody starts differently, but maybe the lawyer has already 2 children and higher expenses. And then
Okay.
you roll the dices, and then things happen, and then sometimes you have an expense, you buy a jet ski and this and that. But the idea is always that you start building equity, that you build uh, like assets, you buy assets, and then you build passive income. And the idea is that your passive income is more than your expenses. And then you have to decide in the game if you pay back some of your loans. And that's actually always the crucial thing, where you see how people behave while playing the board game, who's just saying, I just keep my loans. I just want to keep investing. And that, like, but completely forget about the expense side, that they never get down from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the game
And,
really teaches you that.
and George, can I mention something to you that you brought up a really important point about the expense side, but a lot of people don't understand there's an expense side to investing. And can I just give you this is what I think is one of the biggest financial mistakes young people, old people, people of any age make. Okay. And what that is they're paying tiny termite size fees that are creating quietly termite-like destruction on their portfolios. So let me give you an example I'm talking about. You got two people, both in their just got out of college, both 25 or whatever it is, okay, both making the same income, both put $1,000 a month away in investments. Person for their whole career. Person A puts it in a low-cost index fund with a 0.03% management annual fee. Person B uses an advisor that charges the standard 1%. They put it in the advisor puts them into an actively managed fund with a 5.75 upfront load and a 0.66% ongoing management fee. By the way, this is a very common actively managed type fund. Okay, at the end of 40 years, when they're 65, assuming historical market returns, okay, person A has a portfolio of $8.5 million. Person B has a portfolio of $4.2 million. Same market returns, same contributions. The only difference was the fees. This isn't bad market timing. This isn't bad stock picking. This isn't a market crash. This is simply fees quietly eating away at their portfolio. And this is assuming, George, they never got a raise. If we assumed normal raises, that gap of 4.3 million would be even bigger. But here's the tragedy that I think is the biggest. Person B probably thinks he got excellent service from his advisor. Nice guy, went on a golfing trip with him once or whatever. But here's the thing about it is what person B doesn't realize is he did the equivalent of funding someone else's retirement with half of his own money. And that is what I have a real problem with. And I am not against advisor, George, because some people, they should have advisors. They're too emotional. They just can't, control things. But here's my point about that. What I'm against are products that enrich Wall Street at the expense of their clients' portfolios. And I'm embarrassed to admit, George, I never questioned fees during 40 years. Matter of fact, I just thought those are the rules of the game. But what I later discovered is the rules we don't question can cost us the most. And in person B's case, it cost him $4.3 million quietly, little by little, over his entire investment career.
Nice recap and good to remember. I mean, some people really decide because they are high net worth individuals. They are very busy, run different companies. Sometimes for them, it makes sense to have financial advisors that help them with.
Yeah, I'm not against that. Yeah, I'm not against that.
Yeah, and then it's a conscious decision as well, because then you have a business case. You say, I know I have this and that amount, and for me that's good to let an expert do that. But for people who start off like you did a few years ago, restart, it doesn't make sense to go immediately to a wealth advisor.
But let me clarify one thing on advisors. Like I say, I'm not against advisors. I'm a do-it-yourself person, but I'm not against advisors. But here's what I'm against. People who are ignorantly just say, okay, I'll turn it over to the advisor and I'm sure he's going to be fine. No, you need to know the basics, okay? At least get the free compass so you can make sure when your advisor is trying to get you an active managed fund with a 5.75 upfront load, you can question that. You can say, wait a minute, why not an index fund? Why not something inexpensive, that kind of thing? And so I just would say, nobody cares more about your financial security than you do, not even an expert advisor. So you need to have some basic knowledge so you can make sure you're the CEO of your portfolio, not an advisor. He can do all the grunt work and all the mechanical stuff, but you need to be in charge. That's my opinion anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same what we do. We have a leak at home with the water, with the boiler, and we need a plumber to come. If you have no clue about it, we just hope they do it right. And for me, it was like within 3 weeks, 3 different plumbers came in. It's still not fixed because there's always like someone else. And while watching, I'm learning, and now I feel like I understand what's happening. But of course, I never studied it. I thought like, I just call this guy and he will fix it. And the same is with our money. I mean, of course, if you don't have any clue and we just let someone do, we can never assess, was this work good? Was it worth the money? Did it fix what I needed to have fixed? And that's what I like about your message, about the agency, taking the ownership, and really at least knowing, and can be also, you can evaluate their work and say, hey, what's the performance you brought me in for this money? Is this good or not? Is it what we set as a goal? And how are the fees? And can you transparently show me all of that then?
And you
Um,
make a good point, George, because I will tell you, I have my handyman on speed dial. I mean, I am not a do-it-yourselfer when it comes to around the house stuff. I just, that's not my thing. Okay. But the point is this, have you ever had a plumber make a $4.3 million mistake at your house or a $500,000 mistake at your house? There's no way. It's not even possible. Okay. That's why I'm saying this is something that you've got to take some ownership with, even if you're going to delegate it to an advisor. That's just,
Beautiful, David. I really love this conversation. I think you gave a lot of advice to young people to understand like how to take the next step. Keep it easy, keep it boring, keep it
yeah,
simple.
exactly.
I see it especially with men as well. Like if I compare it to my wife as well, who her portfolio performance is much better than mine because she buys and she holds and she doesn't
Yeah.
look in the app for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like constantly doing things. So especially for men as well, all of them say it's like difficult to hold my horses, to not be like into this greed and buy into the next trend. And now it's the right time to buy Bitcoin again. So thank you so much. That really helped to put things in perspective. Uh, yeah, I appreciate as well that you will be sharing your wealth compass. We will link below in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I make one point too? Is when they sign up for they get a free newsletter and they instantly get the compass right away. But the reason I do the newsletter is I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have time to advise people. But I felt like this is a virtual way I could give them some tips and ideas, and they'll get a tip every regular periods that go and kind of go along with the compass and go along with the book if you're interested in the book. And so it kind of all works together, and it's a simple way for people who don't have a lot of time to get on the right track.
hmm And if I can ask you one last question,
Sure.
if you could choose who I invite next to this podcast, or let's say even an important topic that you would like to hear on our show, what would it be?
I don't have a person's name, but I can tell you the person I would invite. I would
Okay.
invite somebody who has a below average income, who has a portfolio that is fairly impressive. And they're out there. You know, they're not easy to find, but they're definitely out there. Because I can give you several examples of my do it in my book, actually. Because I think so many people are under misunderstanding. I don't make enough money to invest. And when you see these people who make less than you do, okay, and they have these portfolios, that's a guest really worth listening to, I believe, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. I have a blue collar recruiting agency, so I help a lot of people who come
Okay.
from Brazil or India to work in Austria.
Uh,
And they come from simple background, like workers, electricians, chefs, and of course, salary is not great in those countries. And then you come to Austria and you have a higher salary. And see some of them, I help them now with the processes and bringing their family as well to them. And I see how they saved and managed to save in a year, which I'm impressed. A lot of
yeah.
my friends or myself, we sometimes are not able to do that. But just with a modest salary and having a clear plan and having a goal and like bring my family here, people can really do impressive things, and that's just a saving. So it's a really 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 good idea to look for someone who has actually started to invest, and bring them on the show because we can all learn from such examples. Great, thank you so much, David. I wish you all the best with all your projects, and yeah, that you could keep compounding and keep inspiring people around the world.
Thank you, George. It's been a pleasure. I'm so grateful you invited me on your program.
Yeah, thank you, David. Bye bye.